February 5th, 2051, flames roar in the central plaza of Catania, Sicily, as a 25-year-old woman is dragged toward the pyre. Her body is mangled, her breasts savagely ripped off with red-hot pincers just days earlier, leaving raw wounds still seeping through the rags that barely cleaned her chest. Her name is Agatha, and even now she refuses to bend. After enduring weeks of excruciating torture, this remarkable woman has dared to oppose the most powerful figure in Sicily, turning down his advances, laughing off his threats, and standing unshaken in her faith as her flesh is methodically destroyed. In moments, fire will consume her body, but her soul has already become legend. How did a young Christian girl come to stand against the full force of imperial Rome and, in doing so, become an eternal symbol of feminine defiance? To understand Agatha's otherworldly bravery, we must travel back to 3rd century Sicily, when the island was shackled beneath the ruthless control of the Roman Empire. Agatha was born around the year 225 in Catania to a wealthy Christian family that had secretly embraced the underground faith passed down from the followers of St. Paul. She came of age in a world where Christianity meant secrecy, risk, and persecution, where a single whisper from an informer could obliterate an entire bloodline. From a young age, Agatha displayed a depth of piety that startled even the elders of her faith. At 15, she made a sacred private vow, an oath of eternal virginity, consecrating her body and spirit wholly to Christ. In a culture where girls were bartered in arranged marriages like livestock, her decision was nothing short of incendiary. But Agatha was more than pious. She was breathtaking. Ancient accounts describe her beauty in near mystical terms: hair like spun gold, eyes the hue of the Mediterranean, and a face of such ethereal harmony it seemed carved by divine hands. Paired with her family's status, her radiance made her one of the most sought-after young women in all Sicily. For years, she managed to maintain her vow by gracefully deflecting suitors. She told them she wasn't ready, needed more time. Her parents, fellow Christians, understood her true resolve and sheltered her as long as possible. But they knew it was only a matter of time before her secret would be impossible to protect. That time arrived in 250, when a new praetor named Quintianus took power under the rule of Emperor Decius. Quintianus was infamous, a merciless hunter of Christians and a man consumed by lust. The moment he laid eyes on Agatha at a public ceremony in Catania, his obsession ignited. For him, Agatha was the ultimate conquest, unparalleled beauty, vast family fortune, and a spirit that dared to resist. He pursued her arrogantly, bombarding her with lavish gifts, hosting extravagant feasts in her name, and pressuring her family with increasingly outrageous proposals. But Agatha rebuffed every approach with icy civility, cloaking her disgust beneath formality. She declared herself already promised to God, unavailable to any man, especially a pagan persecutor of her people. Quintianus, enraged by her audacity, launched a quiet war. He began probing into her family's affairs, sniffing out their secret faith. It didn't take long to uncover what he needed. Agatha's parents were active Christians, and she was deeply involved in forbidden rites. Then came January of 251. Emperor Decius launched one of Rome's most brutal crackdowns on Christians, demanding that all subjects make offerings to Roman gods or face death. For Quintianus, it was the perfect pretext to dismantle the shield between him and the woman he couldn't possess. He ordered the arrest of Agatha's parents for their Christian beliefs. When she ran to their defense, she too was seized and taken to the praetor's palace. There, Quintianus revealed his true hand. He offered her freedom not just for herself, but for her entire family, if she would denounce her faith and marry him. Agatha's reply was cutting in its simplicity. "I would rather die a Christian than live as the wife of a tyrant." Her words rang through the palace like a bell. No amount of threats or promises could sway her. In that moment, Agatha did the unthinkable. She defied a Roman ruler, publicly and without fear. Quintianus, humiliated before his men, sent her to the dungeon. But before resorting to violence, he tried a different path: corruption. He handed Agatha over to Aphrodisia, the madam of Catana's most elite brothel. She was to soften Agatha through exposure to debauchery. For a full month, Agatha was imprisoned among courtesans. Aphrodisia tempted her with luxury, bullied her with threats, paraded handsome young men to seduce her, and even resorted to drugging her, but none of it worked. Agatha remained resolute, praying constantly, her chastity untouched. The strategy backfired. Aphrodisia, frustrated and defeated, reported to Quintianus. Agatha was unbreakable. The only path left was through pain. Furious and still obsessed, Quintianus decided that if he could not have her, then no one would. On February 4th, 251, Agatha was paraded before a kangaroo court. Dressed in his imperial finery, Quintianus gave her one final offer: worship the Roman gods and become his wife. Agatha's answer was unwavering. My body belongs to Christ, my soul to God. I would rather die in martyrdom than unite myself with a man like you. That sealed her fate. Quintianus ordered a campaign of agony, not just to torture her physically, but to shatter her mentally and spiritually. She was stripped before the crowd, tied to a rack, and stretched until her joints nearly tore apart. Red-hot iron scorched her back. Nails were driven beneath her fingernails. Weighted whips tore her flesh to ribbons. Yet with each fresh horror, Agatha did not scream in despair, but declared her faith. Christ gives me strength. Christ shields me. When none of it worked, Quintianus escalated the cruelty. He commanded that her breasts be torn off with glowing hot pincers, a direct assault on her femininity. The act was done slowly, grotesquely, while he watched every second, hoping to witness her spirit break. The stench of burning flesh filled the room. Agatha's screams rang through the marble halls, but still, she would not renounce her faith. Bleeding and mutilated, she summoned the strength to speak once more. Cruel tyrant, do you not blush to mutilate in a woman what you fed from your own mother? But my soul bears unblemished breasts from which I nourish all my sacred virtues. These words, recorded by early Christian writers, became one of the most powerful expressions of spiritual resistance ever spoken. Seeing that he had birthed a martyr rather than broken a girl, Quintianus tossed her back into the dungeon to die. But that night, something miraculous occurred, something believers would speak of for centuries. Saint Peter himself appeared in her cell. He touched her wounds, her flesh healed, her mutilated chest was restored. When guards arrived the next morning, they found Agatha glowing with divine peace, no longer broken, but radiant. Whispers of the miracle spread like wildfire. Soldiers spoke in hushed voices. Officials panicked. Even Quintianus, shaken, questioned what he'd witnessed. But rather than relent, he doubled down. If her gods could heal her flesh, he would ensure there would be nothing left to save. She would be burned alive. Let me know when you're ready for the next section. Her death did not silence her. It amplified her. News of the supernatural quake spread across the empire, whispered in markets and temples, carried by merchants, monks, and travelers. In Catana, the people began to speak of her not as a victim, but as a protector. Her veil, once stained with blood, became a holy relic. A few years later, when Mount Etna threatened to annihilate the city with molten lava, the citizens carried Agatha's veil in a solemn procession to the volcano's edge. Miraculously, the lava halted. From that moment, she was not only the patroness of Catana, but the guardian against natural disaster. Through the centuries, Agatha's martyrdom became a touchstone for women's defiance in the face of oppression. Her image, often depicted with the instruments of her torture or bearing her severed breasts on a silver platter, spread through the Christian world, not as grotesque spectacle, but as sacred defiance. Artists, sculptors, and visionaries invoked her story again and again. From the brush of Andrea Mantegna to the carvings of medieval cathedrals, Agatha's face looked out with quiet power, reminding every believer, and especially every woman, that dignity could endure even in the grip of brutality. During the Middle Ages, when Christian Europe was gripped by violence, plague, and political tyranny, her story became a rallying cry. Not all saints were meek or gentle. Agatha had grit. She didn't submit to power. She transcended it. Her tale was told in whispered prayers by abused wives, cloistered nuns, and young girls promised to old men. She was invoked in moments when earthly justice failed, when laws were written by the cruel, and when voices of the innocent were drowned out by authority. But even beyond religious tradition, Agatha's story contains something universal. In her final moments, she didn't curse her torturers or cry out for vengeance. She prayed. She forgave. She surrendered her life, not in defeat, but in triumphant fidelity to a truth higher than Roman law. And in doing so, she gained something no empire could grant: eternity. Today, Saint Agatha of Sicily stands as one of the earliest, clearest examples of feminine resistance in recorded history. Long before the language of human rights, long before the frameworks of feminism or legal equality, she proved by action what others would later prove by philosophy: that no system of domination, however brutal, can extinguish a soul grounded in truth. Her relics are still venerated. Her name is still spoken in prayer. And every February 5th, across Italy and beyond, thousands gather to honor not just her suffering, but her unbreakable spirit. In a world still filled with abuses of power, her example reminds us that moral courage does not always look like strength. It sometimes looks like scars. That true resistance does not always require weapons. It sometimes requires silence, clarity, and a single unshakable no. Agatha's life and death remain a warning to tyrants and a consolation to the oppressed. Her mutilation became a message. Her pain became a prophecy. And her death, intended to erase her, ensured that she would never be forgotten.